not been shackled by conservatism either. Looking at the representation of the Pakistan society through the prism of these dramas, it is essential to examine not only how it produces meaning, but also how knowledge, which a particular discourse produces, connects with power, regulates conduct, makes up or constructs identities and subjectivities, and defines the way certain things are represented, thought about, and practiced. Nevertheless, meanings are constantly shifting and are never fixed. The poetics and politics of representation through these dramas leads to either being dismissed as stereotypical and manufactured or being contested and transformed. While meanings are often organized into sharply opposed binaries or opposites, these binaries are constantly undermined as representations interact with one another, substituting for each other, displacing one another along unending chain. Individual beings or identities, as we see, resonate differently with few situations, as they are often contested and sometimes bitterly fought over. There are always different circuits of meaning circulating in any culture at the same time, overlapping discursive formations from which we draw to create meanings or to express what we think. For instance, in Zindagi Gulzar Hai, through the reading of portrayal of women, the aim is to gauge what does independence mean to modern women. Is it same for Pakistan or is it different than what Indian mindsets believe? It is not because Zarun, the male protagonist, is a heartthrob that justifies his statements that show him as conservative male, but it is because our definition of liberation tends to be quite shallow, skewed, and deluded at times. While men need to understand that women are equals as competitive intellectuals, at the same time, feminists need to pick their battles wisely rather than essentializing the radical sentiments of feminism more so in the context of Pakistani society. The measure of liberation is not evidenced by one's outlook or social life. Instead, true freedom of thought is achieved in isolation of material desires. The Indian perception about Pakistan community is reframed, which would consciously or unconsciously contribute to people-to-people ties between the two countries. In conclusion, I would say, with Pakistan dramas and characters getting into the houses of an average Indian, it sort of broke a mental block. It made Pakistanis to be a normal bunch of human beings in our mind. When they bore open their fears, attitudes, habits, and circumstances to us Indians through this medium of popular culture, we immediately sympathize and connect. The problems and situations seem to be quite common across borders. The second achievement of this drama series is the portrayal of females in the serials. The very fact that women are not questioned for every decision they take, and some characters in the story are extremely headstrong about balancing career and work, should make us applaud with respect. What is heartening to see is the liberal thinking women with a strong rooted sense of culture. However, the sudden impulse to reject anything and everything connected with Pakistan can never be ruled out, though the space of representation that has opened up in the genre of popular culture seems to be a site for revision and reinterpretation of meaning as far as the relation and the ties between the two countries are concerned. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'd like to highlight why this is important. This paper stands important in this Peace and Development Conference with regard to India-Pakistan relations. This looks at how there is a mutual mistrust. This explores how there is a mutual mistrust between India and Pakistan in their social science textbooks. And I've made a modest approach. I've taken primary textbooks of 9th and 10th standard, and I'm only looking at how a mutual distrust is there. First of all, how nationalism gets tied to the textbooks. Nationalism as an ideology or phenomena is closely intertwined with the nation state, but is often associated with the overt and explicit expressions in form of nationalist struggles and wars of independence. But the newer literature that we have on nationalism questions this treatment. It widens the understanding of nationalism not only to capture the overt nationalist struggles and conflicts, but also there are deeper patterns of collective identity and pride with ordinary people's everyday conceptions of where and how we stand in this world. The existence of nation, as Ernest Renan has said, a daily plebiscite where the nationalist discourse reinforces the citizens as nationals through the ample use of state and civil society, and one agent in this regard is the education of its citizens, where textbook constructs a nationalizing narrative. Thereby, a nation gets constructed temporally by establishing a long historical continuity and a common cultural essence, and spatially with clear borders with all the arbitrariness removed. The study looks at social constructivist approach to nationalism. As I've already discussed, it looks at from paradigms that it's a discourse. It uses three elements. One is the spatial one. The spatial dimension implies the construction of nation within well-defined boundaries as a national territory. The temporal dimension explores the relationship between past and present. It reflects on national history, which narrates the story of nation and becomes a site for contestation, where to legitimize claims in the present, past is appropriated. And this is a famous quote from Ernest Renan that forgetting, I would go far as to say historical error is crucial factor in the creation of nation. Then the other dimension that's explored in the textbooks is the symbolic dimension, where we have symbols through which nation is played out, and communally held collection of images and narratives makes the national subject or citizen at home in the nation. The reading of textbooks, I would only like to highlight one of the very seminal works that have been done in this regard. This was done by Professor Krishna Kumar. His book titled Pride and Prejudice, School Histories of Freedom Struggle in India and Pakistan. They only looked at how the modern freedom struggle is portrayed on two sides. Okay. I'll move on to how I have seen these textbooks. The first dimension, as we've discussed, is the spatial dimension. This example is from the Pakistani textbook of geography, the administrative divisions. If you look clearly towards your left-hand side, Jammu Kashmir is shown as a disputed territory, whereas the borders of with other provinces are the provincial borders. It doesn't show the international border there. Down below, it shows Junagadh and Manbadar, which has been shown as part of Pakistan. With respect to the Indian textbooks, with respect to India's textbooks, the whole state of Jammu Kashmir is shown as part of India without any reference to the territory that is not under its jurisdiction, that is Pak-occupied Kashmir. Also, I would like to take a quote from the geography textbook. This is from the chapter on Jammu and Kashmir, which is a part of the series of chapters regarding provinces in Pakistan. If you look at the quote, since there's a paucity of time, I will only highlight the last things. There are several road links and the populations on both sides on the border have strong ethnic, cultural, and social links in addition to the abiding bond of the common religion. Islam, Kashmir, and Pakistan are complementary to each other. These understandings of spatial demarcations of the nation is reinforced by maps and texts to the readers are the official dictums or positions of the nation states with regard to their territories. These can be seen as an obstacle in the process of dialogue between the two nations since they adhere to not only two different understandings but an overlap with respect to Jammu and Kashmir becomes a point of contention. Tracing the temporal dimension, I have only here restricted myself to the 9th and 10th textbooks which look at the freedom struggle. In the Indian textbooks, after the NCF National Curriculum Framework of 2005, we have the new textbook series which discuss the political and social milieu that happened during the freedom struggle. It not only looks at the political mobilization during that period, but also other facets like clothing, cricket, and print media. I've put this reference where The earlier textbooks blamed the partition or the creation of Pakistan onto Jinnah, while the new textbooks have a reconciliatory position where the blame is shifted from Jinnah to the Hindu extremists. I'll just say 2-3 slides. These are from the Pakistani textbooks. Okay, I would like for the temporal tracing of temporal dimensions, there are three important things I want to highlight. The first is regarding the partition. I would request you to go through it yourself and
What is very small in that, that's why I said the proof that what's the crux you want to say at the conclusion.
the crux is that there is a lot of anxiety and mutual distrust that is there with regard to the Pakistani textbooks. If we see the category of Hindu, Indian National Congress, and India have been used interchangeably during the course, and which reflect a mutual anxiety. With respect to the mutual distrust, it seems more apparent in Pakistani textbooks as compared to the Indian ones. One of the reasons is attributed to Krishna Kumar's argument that sameness versus difference is the familiar axis of Indo-Pak dialogue. Pakistan has tried to reinforce their difference in national identity, but India has always harbored on the similarity on which these two related these two nations. The official accounts of the narration of story of two nations are subscribed by citizens and are consolidated and contested in a manner not only to seek accommodation in the official version but to secure legitimacy in the present. This understanding provides an insight into the baggage of history and contemporary realities which allows only the disputes between the two countries to catch attention. The dialogue and the process of reconciliation needs a deeper understanding of this aspect.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Is changing trends in Indo-Pak trade, need for mutual interdependence for peace building. This paper will discuss the changing trends in Indo-Pak trade and also stress on the need to grow their respective economies by helping each other through the way of healthy trade, as both the countries are suffering from problems like poverty and unemployment and so on. In South Asian region, India and Pakistan are the two most populous and largest economies and share one of the longest, most complex and conflict-prone borders with a length of 2,900 kilometers with each other. The history has witnessed a bulk of incidents that shows ups and downs in relationships experienced by both the countries. Talking about the trade ties between India and Pakistan, the strength of the relationship depends on the foreign policies of both the countries. When they are at friendly terms, their trade volume increases to a greater extent. There lies a tremendous potential of trade between both the countries. In the year 2011, commerce ministers of both the countries, while acknowledging the fact that current level of trade is much below potential, vowed to increase it to $6 trillion in 3 years. But despite the commitment, no serious step for both the sides has ever been made to develop and strengthen a framework of terms and conditions of formal bilateral trade. So my first table shows Pakistan's position in India's trade with respect to South Asian countries. It is evident from the above table that Bangladesh stood first as far as share in India's export is concerned, with export share of $6,166.93 million, followed by Sri Lanka and Nepal, whose share is $4,534.35 million and $3,592.30 million respectively. Pakistan's position is fourth in the list of exports of India to South Asian countries, with export share $274.26 million. On the other hand, among South Asian countries, Sri Lanka share in India's import is highest, with the share of $666.93 million, followed by Nepal and Bangladesh with holding share of $529.93 million and $484.34 million respectively. Similar that of Pakistan's position in India's export, Pakistan holds the same level in India's import, also with the share of $426 million. It is worth mentioning that exports of India to other South Asian countries is imports from other South Asian countries. When we are talking about India and Pakistan trade relationship, it is important to compare their respective GDP. The next table is showing annual GDP in percent growth of India and Pakistan. India is far ahead of Pakistan as far as annual GDP growth is concerned. India's GDP has increased from 4.7% to 5% in 2013. Further, it has increased to 5.6% in 2014. It has been forecasted that by 2017, India's GDP will reach at 7%. On the contrary, Pakistan's GDP was 3.5% during 2012. That has increased to 4.4% during 2013. In 2014, it has come nearer to India's GDP, that is 5.4%. In near future, it has been predicted that Pakistan's GDP will show fluctuations. Therefore, for Pakistan, it is important to take advantage from growing economy of India, and that is possible through trade. And there are many eminent researchers who have claimed that both the countries have natural advantage to be benefited from trade. Afzal and Stephen J. using unit price data for imports and exports and making allowances for transportation costs shows that many of Pakistan's exports could be sold in India at prices below those paid by India for imports of similar products from third countries. Similarly, Tanisha and study shows that there is a large untapped trade potential between the two countries of $11.7 billion. The export potential from Pakistan to India is $2.2 billion, while that from India to Pakistan is to the tune of $9.5 billion. During 2013 to 2014, the total bilateral trade between India and Pakistan was $2,701.67 million, which does not harmonize with the repertoire of tremendous potential which is highly warranted to be exploited and harnessed in the supreme economic interest of the entire South Asia generally and the two neighboring countries in particular. To conclude my presentation, due to various historical and political events, the relations between India and Pakistan have always been a complex one. Often their relations have been defined by the violent partition of British India in 1947. Consequently, even though the two South Asian nations share linguistic, cultural, geographic and economic links, their relationship has been plagued by hostility and suspicion. Pakistan and India need to go beyond formal exchanges to resolve their differences. The world abounds in examples that two countries can follow to foster peace and prosperity in South Asia. As we have discussed about that, there is a huge difference in the GDP of both the countries, and it is Pakistan's economy that needs fruits of India's economy to be shared with. But on the other side, India also, in order to grow fast and consistently, need peace with Pakistan government as rather utilizing their time and money in bulk of military equipment. It is far better to utilize it in enhancing trade. Healthy bilateral trade is needed from both the sides. According to Mehta, in the final analysis, we need a political culture in both India and Pakistan that understands that sometimes nationalism is the enemy of the national interest. We need a political culture that is prepared to pay a short-run price for imagining a new architecture for the subcontinent. And we need a political culture that will allow both countries to transcend the sentiments of history that are weighing them down. Even the regional trade, by opening up of the old routes in the state of J&K and Pakistan-occupied Kashmir, can bring the stakes of people move closer than trade relations. Such trade relations should not only consider it as to put economic pressure on other side, but also a way to improve standard of living of the poor, a way to generate employment, and a way to bring political peace
among the two sides, thereby bringing the peace in the major part of South Asian nations. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Priyanka. From the South Asian perspective, I would request you to have one very particular table on GDP where you have used words like forecast. That can be reconstructed and complemented with the data which we have recent data of the growth rate of a particular country. Okay, thank you. Now I invite Ms. Ketan Preet Kaur, bilateral trade between India and Pakistan. Ketan Preet, same request to you since we are talking about trade, where you have put the task and what you want to highlight. That would be your recommendation.
Good afternoon, everyone. The topic of our presentation is bilateral trade between India and Pakistan, which is jointly prepared by Nripinder Kaur and me. The objective of the study are to study the bilateral trade between India and Pakistan, to examine the major risks to trade relations. Data was collected from different journals, articles, books, Ministry of Commerce, Government of India, IMF, etc. Bilateral trade. At the time of independence, India was Pakistan's major trading partner, accounting for 70% of its total trade. In comparison, India accounted for less than 5% of Pakistan's trade in 2011. The share of Pakistan in India's trade at present is less than 1%. Since 1975, when Trading Corporation of Pakistan, a state-owned company, was allowed to import 40 commodities, Pakistan has gradually increased the number of commodities permitted to be imported from India. It was only in 1982 that private corporations in Pakistan were allowed to import from India. Pakistan started trading with India based on positive list approach, which included the approved imports from India. Trade started picking up corresponding to the number of commodities in the positive list, which reached 571 items by 1989. In 1996, India and Pakistan both were signatories of South Asia Preferential Trade Agreement. India granted Pakistan MFN status, and Pakistan decided to expand its positive list to include 596 items. The bilateral trade stood at $180 million by 2005. Trade between the two countries had increased to $602 million, and the number of commodities traded increased to 770 items. The number of commodities in Pakistan positive list were increased to 1075 by 2006. By the 2007-8 trade had increased to $2.2 billion. The decline in global trade following the subprime crisis impacted Indo-Pak trade as well. However, the bilateral trade picked up in 2009-10. Pakistan's positive list for trade with India was further increased in 1938 items, and the total trade recovered from $1.8 billion in 2008-9 to $2.7 billion by 2010. The bilateral trade balance at present is heavily in favor of India. Major risk to trade relations. There existed huge trust deficit between the two countries. South Asian political parties, when in opposition, behave quite differently and diametrically opposed to their policies when in power. There is always a risk from possible ascendancy of losers' lobby. The media and civil society in both India and Pakistan have become quite powerful. Other areas of economic cooperation, such as subcontracting by Indian IT firms to Pakistani companies, tourist packages, and collaboration in higher education, agriculture, health and research, and development between the two countries are not highly beneficial. Policy recommendations. As the Pakistan-India relationship is likely to remain fragile due to past historical experience, proactive management of the policies and process and a vigilant eye on their implementation will be required for some time on both sides. It is therefore proposed that the following policy recommendation be put in place and monitored regularly, and that remedial action be taken to move the process forward. For Pakistan, craft a more comprehensive trade policy, expand the national security concept to include economic stability and trade, protect liberalization losers. For India, promote a selective devise trade measures that are sympathetic to the region's economic asymmetries, simplify and make more transparent all trade rules and procedures, loosen restrictions on transit, enhance the efficiency of trade routes, establish new oversight institutions, use bilateral trade normalization as the Supreme Board for South Asia wide trade normalization, ensure that security and political tensions are not allowed to spoil the trade diplomacy.
Ms. Amanpreet Kaur, India-Pakistan conflicts.
Two nations share linguistic, cultural, geographical, and economic links. Relations between India and Pakistan have been complex due to a number of historical and political events. Since their independence, the two countries have fought through major wars. The Kashmir dispute is the main center point of all of these conflicts, with the exception of Indo-Pakistan War of 1971. The Indus Waters Treaty governs the rivers that flow from India into Pakistan. Water is also cited as one possible cause for a conflict between two nations. There have been numerous attempts to improve the relationship, such as the Shimla Summit, the Agra Summit, and the Lahore Summit. Certain confidence-building measures, such as 2003 ceasefire agreement and Delhi-Lahore service, were successful in reducing tensions. However, these efforts have been hindered by periodically terrorist attacks. The 2001 Indian Parliament attack almost brought the two nations to the edge of a nuclear war. The Samjhauta Express bombing 2007, which killed 68 persons, was also a critical point in relations. Additionally, the Mumbai attacks 2008 carried out by Pakistani militants resulted in creating a dangerous situation to the ongoing India-Pakistan peace relations. The Shimla Agreement between India and Pakistan in July 1972 was considered as a landmark, not only in relations between the two countries, but also for the future of peace and security in South Asia. It ended a bitter conflict between India and Pakistan, which resulted in the creation of Bangladesh. The objective of my study is to throw light upon the major conflict between India and Pakistan of 1947, 1965, 1971 and 1999, to analyze the impact of wars on both nations. The sources have been taken from the Scandi data. Data was collected from different journals, articles and books as well. If we look at the background, Muhammad Ali Jinnah, leader of All India Muslim League, and Jawaharlal Nehru, leader of Indian National Congress, played an important role in the independence movement. Both India and Pakistan had fought through major wars, along with the time-to-time border tensions and clashes, military confrontations. I will not go to detail in the major wars. There are some suggestions for the India and Pakistan peace relations. There is need to stem aggressive security doctrines to reduce the possibility of a nuclear conflict. The media can bring the people close and create harmony between the two nations. The problems of terrorism and non-state actors need to address jointly through institutionalized mechanisms. Water issues should be resolved through the mechanism provided by the Indus Basin Treaty and should not be allowed to degenerate into a serious source of conflict. Confidence building measures should be pursued to elevate the trust deficit, but should not be used as a substitute for the resolution of disputes. Economic cooperation and trade should be facilitated to develop mutuality of interest. India and Pakistan need to understand each other's legitimate injustice in Afghanistan and pursue them without coming into conflict with each other. The conclusion of my topic is India and Pakistan share borders, share history, share the heritage, and share language, share culture. So there should be friendly relationship between two countries, and it is not always wise to look at another. It should be met with the revulsion by all intellectual and learned citizens of these countries, who can motivate the state actors to open hands for a peaceful and democratic relationship between the two nations. We wish for more positive and friendly relationship between India and Pakistan in the coming years. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
India and Pakistan, Jammu and Kashmir has been the bone of contention between the two. It is most tragic that India and Pakistan have been looking upon one another as enemies since independence, and their relations with each other are charged with a lot of